This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen Net reporter, on the City News Roundup show with the Dean of the White Plains School of Journalism, Jim Benerofe, back this evening. And Jim, headlines on a hot week for news.
Here are the headlines for the week of July 19th, 2019. White Plains has second best June sales tax collection in 20 years, almost meets last year's total. School district retains Dr. Joseph Ricca as superintendent of schools for the next 5 years, believed to be the longest contract any superintendent has received. County introduces mental health website with all mental health contacts organizations in one place. Toll Brothers purchases Westchester Avenue collection site. County Board of Legislators votes ban on plastic cups, containers countywide. Impacts will raise prices, restaurants fear. Heat wave breaks with 2 1/3 inches of rain, but more tropical is coming on in. County to begin repair of Playland Derby Racer and Carousel. Attendance said to be substantially up, but the last 5 weeks have not been reported. Governor Cuomo with Al Gore signs agreement with 3 companies to build wind turbines off Jones Beach and Montauk Point. Hector Figueroa, president of the Service Employees International Union, 32BJ, a pioneer in progress for immigrant laborers, dies at 57. Funeral is at Riverside Church, July 24th. Westchester shows progress in restoring George Washington headquarters after years of neglect.
Thanks, Jim. And now to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time for this week. And on the video newsreel March of Time, our lead-off story is Dr. Joseph Ricca in the center on an appearance on People to Be Heard. And he was rehired for another 5 years by the school district Monday evening. And it is really the longest hire I can ever remember. 5 years, for superintendent of schools. And this is another smart decision by the Board of Education, because Dr. Ricca has come in and has done a great job by getting a good, decent contract from the teachers that works for both the teachers and the school district by, keeping the pace of wages slowing, and also establishing a very rapidly installed security program upgrading White Plains schools. And he has great relations all around. He's tireless, and this is what we have long needed, is a young person who comes in and has a great future ahead of him, which the school district will benefit from. In fact, it is good they signed him, because the commissioner of the Department of Education of the state of New York, Mary Ellen Elia, resigned this week in a complete surprise move. So it's good we had him locked up before they appointed him Commissioner of Education. But that, of course, I'm being facetious, but hey, he could do it. And now it leaves the whole education department of the state wondering where they're going to go. Are they going to continue with the testing? And we still don't have test results, you know, from the tests of the spring, which were somewhat fouled up with their computerizing. And we don't know when we'll get those. And that has sort of been backburnered, as has the Common Core that the Elia was working on, or the revised of the Common Core. It is just sort of disappearing with the pushback from the various school districts around the state. We don't know, but this is a big appointment that Cuomo has to make. Now, next up, we have good news for White Plains taxpayers. It's rare we have this, but we do have it today, and that is that White Plains almost made what they made last year in sales tax. The figures came in yesterday from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. In June, we came up with $5,047,352, which is just shy of the $50,076,000 we got last year, virtually even. Red hot June spending. In fact, on the next slide, you will see that over time, $5,047,352 in 2018-2019 is almost on a par with the last big $5 million June, and that was in 2014. And there have been only two $5 million Junes in the last 18 years, Jim. What do you make of this? Do you think it was so hot in June that people just went out more to eat? They drank more in the bars? Or they shopped more?
I don't know. Do we have any evidence that it's
No, we never know.
eating and drinking that brought it, or sales of merchandise?
It's hard to say because they never get a breakdown of where their sales tax comes from. Remember, Eileen Earl has long complained about this because they can't really do demographic studies. So Eileen Earl still stands as a pioneer in trying to get more information from the sales tax reporters. And now, where's the county on this? The county is only up 2% in sales tax the first 6 months of this year. They have gotten $276 million compared to $270.6 million, up in 6 in the last 10 months. So the county increase in the sales tax, which starts in August, could not come at a better time because everything seems to be slowing down. What is your opinion on the local economy?
I don't know. I think the local economy, I guess, sales tax wise, is pretty good now. The local economy, I don't know how the real estate market is.
Well, on last week's show, we shared the results of the first quarter, and it is slow. It was almost very down and unoptimistic press release Gar has put out in a long time. Usually they're gung ho and they're saying something, but they don't really quite know what's going to happen now, I don't think. And now, moving on up, there was another great thing the county introduced this week. It was a new website about mental health. Let's take a look at the entry to that site, and you go to it right there. And this is what County Executive George Latimer had to say about it.
When we have a press conference on an issue or a topic, they all come back to a single basic thing. What is the role of government, and what should government be doing? And there's a school of thought out there that says government should do nothing but the absolute minimum. And that school of thought has had prominence at various times in various levels of government, where you strip down services and you strip down spending. And there is a test of what you can afford to do. So you can't do everything you might want to do or you might think is necessary. But when you look at an initiative like this, what you have to go back to is what happens to an individual in a family where there is a circumstance of mental illness. How devastating is it for the parents having a child who suffers from a mental illness circumstance? How difficult is it in a family when it's your brother, when it's your sister, when it's your parent? And how alone do you feel? How much on an island do you feel as an individual when you look for external help? And the help is out there, but you don't know how to access it. You don't know if it's right for you. We have enough trouble going to a store to find an article of clothing that fits us. And you go from store to store to store to find out what looks right for you and what works. Imagine how difficult it is to track the right kind of service. And so what government is doing in this case is what I believe is a core responsibility of government. It may not be police, fire, sanitation, things that we obviously see every day. But we have a department for community mental health, and we have it staffed by very professional people, and we have a department of information technology that's staffed by professional people. Do not personally have the talent to work in either of those two departments, but the marriage of those two skill sets makes something available and easy for the person who's affected by this, by the family that's affected by this. And I will defend that role of government every single day, that is what our responsibilities are. So let's take a look at how the system works. I don't know, Joe, will you do that for us?
All right, so what I'm going to do, and for some of you this is going to look like a really bad ventriloquism act, Annette is kind of going to walk us through it, and to the degree that I can see the screen. Okay. So, this is the home screen. When you type it into the search engine, this is initially what you find. If you look down the side, don't go too far. If you look down the side, you can see that it lists everything from crisis, outpatient, I'm sorry, that's inpatient. Okay, inpatient, chemical dependency. I mean, virtually every service that currently exists that we're aware of in the county can be found in this directory. So, you can search by agency name, program. Why don't we type in MHA? Just to give Charlotte a shout out.
I was going to do that on the next.
Okay. Well, we can do it often. I'm good with that. So you type in MHA and you're looking for services from the Mental Health Association. You will get a listing of where they provide their services, what services they provide, their hours. If you'll stop right there for 1 second, and this is just by way of example, I haven't picked anything in particular, but if you look, it's address, contact phone number, hours, evening hours, if they're available, age of the people they serve. It literally runs down the entire list of services that you may be able to get from them. The other thing that is on here someplace, and there's a bunch with MHA, is that if they have an active website, you can click on the link and go directly to their website.
So, this is a great idea, realized it works, and if we can have that slide briefly about the actual website. But at any rate, this was a really important press conference, an important development, and it's a great introductory. I urge everybody who has any questions about mental health and knows people who they are concerned about to check out the site and get a handle on it. Meanwhile, we had news that Toll Brothers has purchased the site of the collection on the far right there. We're looking west on Westchester Avenue. Here, there are Westchesters on the left, and the place where the collection is going to go is over to the right, and this is what's going to go there. That's it, and that is, there's not going to be any change from what the collection was previously supposed to be. And what do you think about this, of persons coming in, swooping in, and purchasing approved site plans that have sort of lagged behind execution?
It means that well, I don't know specifically why, what the situation is, but either the person that owned it wasn't in a position to go ahead with it, and they needed to do something, so they sold it. There can be any
32
number.
million.
There can be any number of reasons why that happens.
Right. But we seem to see this happening a lot.
Well, I guess there's a couple of big projects, I think, that changed hands.
Yes.
Didn't Lennar pick up the Post Road and American Avenue?
Right.
But they still have the pavilion site, and they haven't done anything with that.
Right. But
Be
we
interesting.
are waiting for the news on the pavilion site. Meanwhile, the county board of the county board of legislators, sometimes they're interchangeable, who knows. But anyway, they banned plastic cups and containers at facilities around the county, the restaurants, fast food places. And what this means, I spoke to a restaurateur who explained that this means they can buy biodegradable containers, but they're 40% more expensive than the plastic containers and cups. And he says this will most likely be passed on to the customers. And this is another example of doing basically feel-good legislation without deep thinking on its impact on the person that it's going to affect. People that consume products and people that present the services.
Well, I think that in defense of doing something like this, there is so much plastic in the ocean, and I saw this organization, I forget the name of it, that collects the plastic. It's incredible.
It's a lot of junk
Yeah,
that does not biodegrade, particularly in the ocean, and it breaks up. The fish think it's food, and it really affects the environment. And it's a very good idea, but we just point out that we don't know exactly when this is going to go into effect. The county executive, I believe, needs to sign it. But be that as it may, there'll probably be a moratorium before it actually goes into effect. But
now it's interesting talking about that, because one of the things that has already gone into effect, and not every restaurant has done it, but a lot of them have, and that is there's no more plastic straws.
no.
And the paper straws that they're using really don't work well. I've had several of the straws break.
Unintended consequences of a good idea, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Really, that is why plastic straws were invented, because paper straws wear out, particularly when you're working on a malted, because you have to put a lot of suction into a malted. But we digress. Right now, the heat wave broke yesterday, Thursday, and what happened, it broke with 2 1/3 inches of rain. It fell on the, according to my rain gauge, and that was the temperature yesterday morning, about 10 a.m. And this was a welcome relief, but it was a ton of rain. But it's all coming back today. Apparently, it is going to really get hot this weekend. But one thing I want to advise, which I have learned through more experience, Jim, when I got back into the house after taping the program last Friday, I lowered the air conditioning about a good 7 to 8 degrees to cool off the house, and before long, it wasn't doing the upstairs. And what happened was, from the technician told me that what happened was I lowered the temperature too much, then the device, the air conditioning handler, froze up and it stopped cooling. So this is something you've really got to watch for this weekend. The technician advised to gradually increase the temperature you're allowing it to be like if it's 76 and it's about 96 out, you don't want to lower it to 4 or 5 degrees. What you need to do is you have to gradually keep that ratio of 20 degrees between what you want in the house and what the temperature is outside. That is his suggestion, and I advise don't lower that air conditioning in response to how hot your house is.
Don't lower it a significant number of degrees.
Yes.
If you lower it 1 degree, it's probably not going to hurt anything. It's probably
so.
going to make it somewhat more comfortable.
Right, somewhat more. Okay, within reason, But now, news of Playland. If we can have that slide, we're going to the carousel and derby repair. The county commits to doing it. It's going to cost about $14 million to upgrade them both to where they're functional, and in doing so, they also announced that attendance was up substantially as of June 9th. 85,000 as of June 9th, but as you can see, that's compared to 58,000 in 2018, 67,000 in 2017, and 76,000 in 2016. However, I asked for the last 5 weeks, but that was not provided by Parks and Rec as of airtime. You can't say attendance is up substantially unless you give us up-to-date numbers. And I think we got to be honest about this. If you just miss the 1970s, the 2017 year, which was the last really good year we had, that's not a bad thing. It means you've found a formula, and I think it's the concerts and the special days that George Latimer invented that may be leading to this. Now, if he has great weather the next couple of weeks, I think he's got a good effort at doing that. And there's also, let's take a look at Governor Cuomo with Al Gore, and Mr. Cuomo, Governor Cuomo, signed a new agreement with Equinor, a Norwegian company, Ørsted, a Danish company, and Eversource, an American company, to build wind turbines off of Jones Beach and Montauk Point. A big deal. And he thinks it'll go a long way for 20% of his wind power. Now, we want to also salute the county for really doing a great job getting together on the Nathan Miller House, and we have 2 videos by Catherine Chiaffi, who is the Director of Communications. First, she talks about what they were doing in June, and then she updates us on July. Here it is.
Dave, we're standing here in front of the Elijah Miller House. Obviously, a lot of construction happening right now. Where are we in the project?
Well, we're pretty far along. We have the back wall is completely rebuilt. As you can see in the background, the roof is being put in now, and the visitor center slab has been poured, the framing's complete. The framing on the roof is done. So yeah, we're moving along in a really, really good schedule.
Okay. The roof probably the most notable thing, because for the longest time we drove by and saw the blue tarp. The blue tarp is gone. So what is the roof, I guess, on the way to looking like?
Well, it's going to be looking as close to an original cedar shake roof as we can make it with modern materials.
And so what's happening on the inside of the house right now?
Well, there's not too much on the inside. The contractors focus more on getting the exterior completely done first, but there is all those support structures on the second floor that are done. And then, of course, before they start anything, they put big beam supports resting on the floor to support the first floor so that they could do the work above it.
And so we also have, as you mentioned, the visitor center. So where are we in this process?
Well, we're pretty far along on this one. The building's been completely framed out. You can see where the rooms are going to go. and where the windows, the doors.
And something that I thought was so interesting that you mentioned is that the boiler and all of the utilities for the main house are going to be stored here.
That's correct. We made a decision to take all the infrastructure, the hot water heater, the boiler, all that out of the Miller house and relocate it here. We bring all the utilities in new from the street and then run the lines to the house underground.
And why is it so important to preserve as much as you can?
Well, it gives a poignant reminder to people when they're here that about life in colonial America before we were a nation even. I mean, this predates the Revolutionary War. And it helps us interpret that time and educate not only children but adults alike on where we were and how the country was created, and the people who came here, and the personalities of the people who came here. You know, it helps us tell the story.
Okay, so it's another beautiful day here at the Miller House. Obviously, the front is looking very different from when we saw it during the last video. Very, very dug up at this moment. What's happening here right now?
Well, right now outside we're putting in the hot water lines. Those are the big black pipes you see in the background, and we've actually closed up all the other trenches, the electrical trenches that we had excavated when we were here last. So those are being welded together. The insulation's put around the pipes to keep the hot water hot, and they run from the new building, the new classroom building, all the way around to the side entrance of the original house.
So we're also looking at this new roof that was not here last time we were here. This looks beautiful.
Yes, it does. So this is what they would have used in the 18th century, the cedar shakes, and it's just a reproduction of it. There's some things that we bowed to modern building technique on it if you look very closely, but the appearance of and it'll all get kind of gray as cedar does when it weathers. Classroom building, we opted for a gray shingle, asphalt shingle that would, it's got an architectural texture to it, but it doesn't fool anyone that we're making a reproduction building.
Magnificent from the outside. What's happening in the inside?
Well, since we were last here, one of the major things is the building is considered an envelope. In order to keep the walls from falling apart, they put steel straps along the second floor flooring and connected them to the roof, so that the whole thing completely becomes a very rigid and structurally stable building. They took apart the chimney completely, and we came up with a compromise of building a steel flue and rebuilding the chimney around that modern flue, so that we'll have a working fireplace in the building, which is something that we've wanted to have for programming. And I think it'll be a really important tool in interpreting 18th century life to the people that come here.
How satisfied are you when you come here and you see how much progress has been made?
Oh, it's incredible. It's the progress. It's the project itself has started. I mean, this has been something that we in Parks have been anxiously awaiting for a long time. So it really warms our heart to have this thing underway and in such a rapid and efficient way.
Thank you so much for giving us this update, and we'll be back soon.
Very good.
And thank you, Catherine Chaffee, Director of Communications, for those two updates. They're really doing a great job on that. And we're going to close the show saluting Hector Figueroa, who passed away last week at the age of 57. He is president of the 32BJ SEIU. He is the only labor leaguer who has been speaking out regularly on the effects of immigration laws and prejudice against union workers, and he will be missed. His funeral is Wednesday. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.